Okay, so this one is going to be about curating the player's experience. And that's a pretty broad topic, and there's going to be some smaller topics within it. But watching videos, listening to people talk about the game and how they go about making certain types of decisions and things. And this one guy was talking about how one of his biggest pet peeves is when he's a player, if he gets stunned or paralyzed, he just hates it. Because, like, okay, if an enemy stuns him, his next turn, he can't do anything. Just because he failed a con save. Like, okay, that's reasonable. Like, especially like from a combat strategy and tactics perspective, yeah, you're stunned. You're taken out of the game for a little bit. But what that really means is if you're in a group of like 4, 5, 6 players and you're stunned, it's been, it's like 45 minutes between turns sometimes. But by the time your turn comes back around, ideally it shouldn't be. It should be closer to like 20. But still, like, it's a long time before your turn comes back around. And your turn comes around and you're stunned and you can't do anything. So you gotta wait again. Or at the very least, like, you have to attempt the save. And if you pass it, depending on the effect, if it's at the start of your turn, then sure, then yeah, you get your turn. But if not, okay, you failed your save, or say it's at the end of your turn, you passed your save, now you're not stunned. Great, you still have to wait for your next turn. Hope you don't get stunned again. So, why is there half of a traffic cone? That's weird. So, something like that takes agency away from the player, I can definitely agree that that's not a great mechanic to use. Like, stunning players, probably not something I'd do. I might, instead of stunning them, I would maybe slow them, or something similar to slow, where, like, instead of being able to take movement, action, bonus action, I'm counting with my hand. Instead of being able to take movement, action, bonus action, maybe they can only take one of those, or they have to give up one, or, whatever it is. Like, restrict them in some way, but don't take their turn away. And you can also accidentally do this. I say accidentally, through other effects. Like, let's say you're playing a barbarian that only has melee weapons, and the only target is some flying thing. What does he do? He just stands there. He's like, alright, I guess I'll ready a potion for somebody that gets hit. That's it. It's like, because you can't actually do anything. So you want to, in situations like that, you have to curate all your encounters at least a little bit so that your party isn't useless. Or, of course, you could give your party certain types of magic items and weapons that help them avoid that kind of uselessness. Like, say, give that barbarian a bunch of javelins of lightning, or just a bunch of magic javelins that, like, return to him after the fight. So he's got like 6+1 javelins he can just throw. So he's got 3 turns worth of long range attacks, something like that. But then you also, again, curating player experience. I'm just trying to mentally loop myself back because there's lots of stuff going on this highway right now. There's like, I passed 2 accidents already. What the hell is going on? So, something you also have to worry about, or not worry, but you have to think about your monsters and enemies' stats and stuff. Because the way the system works is if you give your monsters AC that's too high or too much HP or what have you, then you might end up making it so your players almost never, or have a really hard time hitting a certain monster. And if you're making a monster that's like explicitly really evasive, but like if they do manage to hit it, it just goes down. Sure, do that. That can be a cool design as long as it's executed right. But like if it's just a party of like level 3s and they're just fighting like a normal enemy that has 18 or 19 AC, they're going to have a really hard time hitting that. Likewise, even a little higher level, 18 or 19 AC is high enough that PCs are generally only going to be able to hit it maybe 50% of the time, assuming normal stats and no magic items. So, and I've got some anecdotal evidence here. It also is going to affect how those players tend to roll, and sometimes you have a bad night. So, there's two examples, actually technically 3 examples I want to bring up. So the first one was about a year ago. We were doing the holiday one-shot for Erlmeyer, and the DM homebrewed these like weird clam monsters, and he gave them 18 AC. Now all of our party's martial characters, the ranger and the barbarian. I was playing the ranger. We had +7 to hit bonuses on our attacks. Meaning, we had about a 45% chance, right? 45? It's either 45 or, I think it's like 45, to hit these 18 AC creatures. And while the barbarian rolled relatively well thanks to reckless attack, I rolled like shit. I made probably 9 or 10 attacks that whole combat, and I think I hit twice. And I felt I was a little butthurt about it. That's partially my fault, because that's just how the game goes sometimes. Like literally, it's just how it goes sometimes. You just roll really low, and you can't roll above a certain number for no real reason, because that's just what the dice are doing today. So, how do you avoid that? Well, something I do when I'm designing monsters is I'm going to curate them at least a little bit to the party that is going to be fighting them. And that doesn't mean I do Skyrim style auto leveling and scale them exactly. It's more so like, okay, this party has about an average of +8 to hit. Alright, so most of my monsters are going to be 16, 17 AC. Some like really squishy monsters might have like 14 AC. But I want to get above that 50-55% to hit chance for the players specifically. That way, some monsters, like some particular monsters, I might have higher AC because they're harder to hit. for whatever reason. Maybe it's a really, really skilled swordsman that's on the same level as the PCs. Maybe it's some super armored monster, something like that. Yeah, something like that. But, you know, otherwise, I'm going to keep it, like, low enough that they can actually hit more often than not. Because if a player is attacking, like, 4 times and they only hit one of them, it feels kind of bad. It's not as fun. So, 2 examples. Or 2 more examples from the Ugliest Man Alive campaign. So first, in our first combat, it was this really dynamic ship combat. There were all these mechanics to interact with, cutting ropes, all sorts of stuff. But one of the characters, Mildred, the little goblin paladin, just couldn't roll above like a 9 and just couldn't hit anything. So, and kept failing deck saves and all this shit. So, you know, again, sometimes that just happens and it's like, and you might feel some sort of way about the system after that. But overall, like, that's just how it is. So what do you do about that as the DM? Like, do you do anything about that? Well, like I said before, you can design things in a certain way. Or you can, in that particular case, like, okay, this player hasn't gotten a chance to, like, do anything interesting this combat or this whole session. So maybe you create a little moment for them to do something. Like, for example, someone is trying to, like, in that situation, the party is defending their ship. Another force is, like, coming across on grappling hooks, boarding the ship. So maybe, instead of giving them a really specific, it's like, instead of just giving them the normal, like, okay, at the top of the round, make a deck save or a strength or deck save to cut these ropes to prevent additional enemies from showing up and you having to deal with them. Well, maybe you give them the opportunity to like, do something like, you know, when they go to make that deck save, okay, you have a guy right in front of you on the rope. What do? And you give them a special opportunity to do something, and they can come up with something. Like, hopefully they're mentally there. But yeah, like, maybe you give them the chance to make that deck save to cut the rope and attack that guy at the same time. And you don't make the DC too high in that case, because, again, you want them to do something cool. And if they do that, then they cut the rope to prevent more guys, and they, like, attack that guy like this character had a spear, so you stab him in the leg as he falls backwards into the water. So you know that that guy is not only momentarily taken care of, but he's probably going to drown and be quote, permanently solved. That's a kill. So, you know, you can solve it something like that. But another case, such as what happened in our most recent Ugliest Man Alive game, there was this fight with a bunch of Swaggin. And there were a bunch of, like, really specific Swaggins. There was a high priestess. There was the multi-armed baron with a trident. There was 2 coral smasher guys that had hammers. There were 2 normal ones. And there was a blade master who had some, like, water lightsaber, basically, in plate armor. And he had 20 AC. Now, that breaks that first rule of it's going to be hard for the players to hit this guy. What do? In that case, because it's a large battle and this is just one specific monster, that's, I think, good design, having that type of monster there. There is one monster that has really high AC and is hard to deal with. Now, as a result, I engaged him first and made one or two small tactical errors, but it's not a big thing, because he came up first round, and instead of approaching us and getting too far away from its companions and its side, the other Swagans, it just came up and readied an attack, so that if we got in range, it would swing at us. And I just ran up and attacked it. So then I think it rolled like an 18, and then I used a magic item I have as a reaction to boost my AC by 3 to 19. Okay, cool. And that was on my turn, so my reaction doesn't refresh, and I don't get another reaction until my next turn. Okay, I didn't think that was that big of a deal. Then, so I take my attacks. It's already outlined with Fairy Fire, so I have advantage. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to Action Surge and take 4 attacks. I hit it once. Because on all of my advantage rolls, this character is a +7 to hit. I should be hitting it. An average roll with advantage of 15 + 7, that should hit a 20. I rolled 2 and a 5. 9 and a 6. Something else low, and then I rolled a crit. And it's like, sure. But again, even with advantage, I just rolled low and didn't hit it. And I felt kind of bad about it, but I knew that's a possibility. That's just what had happened. This kept kind of happening throughout the whole rest of this battle. I just kept rolling low, but I didn't feel bad about it, because I knew that was this one specific monster, has a high AC, and I kept rolling low, so it was kind of whatever. But then, because I used that reaction, that Blade Master and 2 more creatures came up and started all attacking me at once. They all focused on me, and they kept rolling over 20. They have like +6 bonuses to hit, but they kept rolling above 18s without advantage. It's like, the first one didn't have advantage, but they gained advantage quickly because of the whole Swagan blood frenzy feature. So they just started rolling over 20s, and they all hit me. I took 2 crits. It was super annoying. And then my turn rolls around again. I use the Samurai Fighting Spirit feature to gain advantage and some temporary hit points, because the Fairy Fire effect faded. At this point. So I was like, okay, it's like, okay, I could use Second Wind to get like maybe 12 HP, and that's it. Or I could use Fighting Spirit to get 5 temp. And I can get advantage on all my attacks. Okay, so I did that. I didn't hit it once. Both my attacks missed. Like, cool, good job. We did it, boys. And then I went down the next time somebody attacked it. Then later on, the priest got me up, or the cleric got me up with a healing word. I attacked the Baron, a different character, because the Blade Master was already dead. And then I just hit him, and then somebody else got the "how you want to do this?" I'm like, alright, cool. I didn't get to do a whole lot that fight, and sometimes that happens. But instead, what happened to my character that fight was he got surrounded by a bunch of characters, survived for a little bit, and then went down. And that was fun. But that's what happens sometimes, And in that instance, I don't think the DM needed to make any concessions to kind of help me out and give me a cool moment, because I didn't need it. Instead, all the other characters got really cool moments. Wet Claw, our Kenku rogue, crit twice in the same fight. Mildred the Goblin Paladin, the same paladin that had a bad time on that first encounter on the boat, just like 7 or 8 sessions ago. This time they crit once or twice. They killed that Blade Master. They did a whole bunch of cool stuff. They had a lot of cool moments in that fight, and that's fine. That's just how it goes sometimes, and you can't really change a bunch of people rolling low. That's not that big a deal. But yeah, sometimes you might curate player experience, sometimes you won't. You adjust saving throw DCs and stuff that everybody has to make so that they're not impossible, unless you want them to be impossible for a specific reason. But that is breaking the norm. The norm, you want your players to succeed on at least 55 to 60% of things, whether that's attack rolls or saving throws. And you adjust your numbers accordingly. You also want your monsters to fail slightly more than they succeed. Kind of. Maybe have them succeed on attack rolls more often so that they can hit the players, but maybe have them fail on saving throws more. It depends. It's something you have to figure out. But yeah, that's some thoughts on curating player experiences. I might have more thoughts later. But yeah.